Hi, thanks for clicking on this video and checking out what I have to say today. I am on a month hiatus on my channel, and I've been taking a break and not really taking a break, to be honest with you. I've been working hard every day on various projects and things I've got going on here. And I'm not sure that I even know how to vacation or take a time off, but I'm doing my best. I really am to try to give myself a little bit of space and grace these days, because I thought I'm coming back in the middle of my hiatus, to do this video and say a few things, because a couple things have happened that I thought were worth talking about, that needed to be talked about. First one being that for anybody who's new to my channel or hasn't been around or seen me before, I've been working on YouTube for 10 years now, after I escaped from Scientology, after 27 years of being, working for the Church of Scientology and doing all that crap and working in the Sea Org and doing all that. I did a lot of time in Scientology, and I escaped from that in 2013, and I've been spending my 7 days a week, my whole life has been focused on helping people to get out of Scientology. And then after I learned enough about Scientology and talked about it for quite a while, I also started extending out to other cults and groups and interviewing people and talking to people, working with people on and off camera from other cults who had escaped other groups. And you'll find just, hundreds, well over 1,000 videos on this channel, all about my journey and about other people's journeys and about how cults work and about why they work and what they do to people and how to take it apart and how to recover from it. All of that is here on this channel. And I've done a lot of work on that. Okay. So it's all been in an effort to try to help people. Someone else who has done far more work than I have done has been Mike Rinder. And Mike is a hero to me. He is a role model to me. He is someone who, he was the very first suppressive person that I contacted after I escaped from Scientology. I had known him in Scientology, but he really didn't know me. He was at a very, very high level, and I was at a lower level of the Sea organization. But I certainly remembered him. He was the man who came out and gave us briefings at events about the war against psychiatry. When we were in Scientology, we were at war with psychiatry. And he would come on stage and share all the good news about our battles and wars and skirmishes with the psychs and how we were winning and destroying them. And he would also brief on other legal activities and things from the Office of Special Affairs, because he was the guy who was in charge of the Office of Special Affairs. And as I've come to learn, and as many of you have come to learn over the years, in escaping from Scientology and learning about how it's put together, just because somebody in Scientology is in charge of something doesn't mean they know everything that's going on about it, or that they are actually even really responsible for or running the show. David Miscavige, the guy who heads up Scientology and has since 1987, when Hubbard died and Miscavige basically took a bit of a hostile takeover, you could say. He has ruled Scientology with a dictatorial hand and dishes out power, distributes power very, very meagerly, we could say. But Mike was responsible for all kinds of dirty deeds and bad things when he was in Scientology. One of the biggest struggles of leaving a cult is reconciling and coming to a place of acceptance for yourself as to not only how you were victimized, but how you also victimized others. And I'll go so far as to say that there is not one person who involves themselves in a cult who does not in some way, shape, or form victimize other people. through cult recruitment, through the lies and deception of cult activities, through the rituals and the mantras and the chanting and the slogans and the practices of being in a cult and the debilitating, psychologically destructive practices, the things that ruin people economically, that tear apart relationships. These are the things that are the daily activities of destructive cults. That's why we, rail against them so strongly. And all of us who are in cults did bad things. And like I said, reconciling that is sometimes a challenge and something that takes a long time. A lot of personal work has to be done, a lot of introspection, a lot of extrospection, a lot of talking, a lot of apologizing, a lot of working things through with other people when you have opportunities to do so. These are the chances that ex-cult members have to make up for what they did when they were in. And of course, exposing the cult itself as a destructive cult once you're out is the number one most effective thing you can do to fight back against the cult you were involved in. There isn't any magic bullet, there isn't any wand that anybody in this entire world has to end a destructive cult or to stop it from doing what it's doing. Every single cult operates within a society that gives it rights and allows them to break those rights, break the laws, do the things they do, and collectively we all sit and watch that happen. We all do. Why don't we get up and do something about it? Because it doesn't affect us personally. That's why, if we're being honest. And you can look at that as a bad or a good trait of human beings, or you can just look at it as a fact. So when something has hurt us as badly as a cult has, especially those of us who were raised in these cults, and I was raised in Scientology, Mike Rinder was raised in Scientology, we never had a different view of the world than Scientology as children. And if that doesn't constitute child abuse, I don't know what does. But we don't look at child abuse that way. If you're not hitting a kid or bruising a kid, you're not abusing them. And we have very, very strange ideas about this. But that's not what this video is about today. I am trying to make the point that cults are bad places to be uniformly and universally. And there is nobody who has a good cult experience. They're bad. We call them destructive cults for a reason. So the very best thing you can expect of somebody who comes out of a destructive cult is to take it upon themselves to very publicly try to do something about that cult. We all have our roles in this world. And a lot of ex-cult members from a lot of different groups have been trying very hard to tell the whole world, you watching this right now, how bad these groups are and what they do to people. They destroy people. They ruin them utterly. They destroy them psychologically. They tear apart their social networks. It's bad. Sometimes it's so bad that it destroys people's minds. And they can't recover from that without a great deal of assistance and work. And some people are simply not willing to do that work. And that's a shame. Mike is not one of those people. Mike Rinder has been on the front lines of fighting Scientology pretty much since very, very shortly after he got out and got his feet on the ground and got sort of stabilized and figured out what to do with himself. And he started fighting back. And Mike Rinder became one of the most powerful and one of the most effective fighters that this world has ever seen against Scientology. That's who Mike Rinder really is. He's a fighter. He's a person who doesn't stand for injustice. He doesn't sit still and just watch people get victimized. And that's a funny thing to say because Mike victimized other people when he was in the Office of Special Affairs. He openly admits to such. And he has gone out of his way not only to publicly fight Scientology, but to privately go to law enforcement over and over and over again and dish and dish and dish to them on all the facts and all the crimes and all the information that he has about Scientology. He has given countless numbers of affidavits submitted to courts testifying to what his experiences were. He has done this of his own free will over and over and over again as part of his fight against Scientology. He then went so far above and beyond what any of the rest of us have done by partnering with Leah Remini, the other person who is the most effective ex-Scientologist who has ever lived. Mike and Leah together, a powerhouse team. And they put together 3 seasons of Emmy Award-winning material called Scientology in the Aftermath, a TV show that broke down Scientology bit by bit, piece by piece, and showed what it was to the entire world in a way that no one else had ever done. They platformed an awful lot of people in the process of doing that, giving them a place where they could have an audience of literally millions of people to share their stories of how they were victimized by Scientology. And the world now knows, as a result of what Mike and Leah did, the world now knows and understands that Scientology is one of the most destructive cults that has ever existed. The layers of deception and deceit and mind control, or you could say psychological influence, that Scientology has on its adherents is legendary. It is beyond the beyond when it comes to what it is that cults do to people. Scientology layers it on more thickly and more strongly than almost any other cult. There's many videos on my channel breaking down exactly how that all works. Purpose of today's video is not to get into that. I'm just saying that that's how it is. People recover from other cult experiences faster and easier than they do from Scientology as a general rule. There are always exceptions to every general rule. So if you are one of those exceptions, this is no invalidation of your efforts to recover. But the layers of, well, I just don't really have another word for it than mind control that exist in Scientology are impressive. So to overcome that and then make a mark on the world, the way Mike and Leah have, to do what they did and make a difference in the lives of hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people, is remarkable and something that can't ever be taken away. So I wanted to say that because I've never really put it out there before. And these are words that need to be said. This acknowledgement needs to be made. Mike recently posted a series of videos the last couple days breaking down some hard truths about the ex-Scientology world and some of the people in it. I have been at the receiving end of similar attacks to what Mike has received over the last few years by the same people for the same reasons. None of that has been fun. None of that has been an adventure or a joy to experience. But it is a necessary bump in the road of trying to get the work done and trying to arrive at the destination that we're trying to arrive at. I am very much on the side of doing effective work against destructive cults. At the end of the day, that's not all that matters to me, but that work and my efforts in it are something I've devoted a fantastic amount of my own personal time and money and resources and energy into. And it's not a winning battle. It's not something I'm ever going to climb a mountain and acknowledge cults have been defeated. It's not that kind of battle, any more than police who fight crime are ever going to look back on their lives. And at the end of retirement for a police officer, they don't look back and go, I solved crime. At the end of the day, at the end of their careers, teachers don't look back and go, I solved illiteracy. There is no more of it. We don't live in that world. We live in a world where we have to continually deal with bad actors doing bad things, predatory human beings who don't have or understand empathy or compassion or tolerance. We live in a world where we are surrounded by such people. There are tens of millions of them, statistically speaking. You've met them many, many times. You've been at the receiving end of human predation. It's probably one of the reasons why you check out my channel, is because you're curious about what that's all about. And I break it all down for you over and over here. So that's a fact of life that we have to deal with. And sometimes, some days, the predators seem like they're really strong and they're really on top and they're really winning. The thing about predators is that they are incredibly self-destructive. And that's just an objective fact. It's not a wish or a hope that I have. It's something I know as an absolute fact. Cult leaders often implode. Demagogues often implode. Bad actors do themselves in through ineptitude, incompetence, inefficiency, and just plain meanness. Hate has a fairly short shelf life because people get tired and exhausted by it. By its very nature, hate is exhausting. Compassion and tolerance and love and goodwill last forever because they are good, they are helpful, they are beneficial. Maybe I should have read a little bit more from my thesaurus, but these are the things that occupy my mind when I think about being attacked. And I don't really want to address any more of that than to say those things. The attacks and the hate are impermanent. They're short-lived. They're spectacular and dramatic and interesting and very, very attention-grabbing. But at the end of the day, they're not important because haters don't help. And hate doesn't help. Anger and vitriol doesn't produce anything. It only destroys things. Again, by its nature. Whether you hate marshmallows or you hate Scientology or you hate Scientology activists, all you're trying to do is destroy things. And that's a shame when it comes to people like Mike, people like Leah, people like me who are just trying to help. So I wanted to say those things. There were some other things I wanted to talk about today as well, having to do with current events. Because while the Scientology space and the ex-Scientology space are endlessly fascinating, believe me, they are. And while cults themselves are fascinating, so fascinating I've made it my life work, and that's not going to stop, by the way. There are bigger picture issues that we all are facing right now. And especially my audience is probably, like me, flailing about a bit for the last week, wondering what to do, what's the future going to hold, where are we going and what's happening, and coming to some really hard truths about who we are surrounded by and what this means for us. I will remind everybody that Hannah Arendt wrote about the banality of evil, the systemic evil that happens through systems and through casual indifference and through sort of casual hate, if you will, sort of armchair analysis of them and them and them being the cause of why I and my life isn't going the way I want it to. Well, it's them, it's those people. This is the easiest thing in the world for human beings to do. Rather than take any personal responsibility for themselves, they'll point the fickle finger of fate and blame at others. It's easy, way easier to do. And then it's really easy for someone to come along and go, yeah, we should organize and do something about those bad people over there, right? And sometimes it is the bad people, but most often it's not. Anyway, I think right now we're having a bit of a come to Jesus moment on the political left, and I'm sure there's a lot of people struggling with that. In fact, I think I will go so far as to say there are an awful lot of people experiencing the 5 stages of grief or acceptance, however you want to frame that. There are these 5 stages or points where people just have to deal with and work out how they're supposed to deal with change, unwanted change. What do you do? How do you do it? What do you deal? How do you deal with this? Well, denial is usually the very first thing people jump to. I don't want to deal with it. Nope. Not going to see it, not going to hear it, not going to talk about it, not going to do anything with it. After denial comes anger, where people start getting pissed because they don't want this thing, and yet there it is imposing itself on them. The reality of the world is what it is, whether you like it or not, whether you believe it or not. And when that comes crashing into, through our front door in such a way that we can no longer deny it, we might get a bit angry about it. Or we may have other reactions, such as bargaining, right? Negotiating, trying to lessen the severity. Well, it won't be that bad. And maybe it won't. That's the funny thing about accepting things, is the unpredictability of it all is what throws the monkey in the wrench. It's not knowing what's coming that throws everybody off. It creates massive levels of uncertainty and fear and doubt and turmoil and upset and all of it. It all comes from that uncertainty of not knowing what's coming. So then comes some depression. And then finally, after coming through all of that, we can come to acceptance. And this is not, again, a sequence of events that everybody follows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It could be 1, 5, 4, 3. I mean, it can roll. And the other thing I've noticed about this over the years of experiencing it myself and helping other people through it is that it can come in stages. It can come and go. You can experience a level of denial and anger and bargaining and depression and acceptance, and then go right back into denial or bargaining or anger. And it can be a thing that you have to go through again and again and again and again. But this is just a way of framing it. It's just a way of thinking about it. How you feeling? What are you feeling today? Are you angry today? Are you depressed today? Are you kind of not trying to just not think about it too much today? Or at least this hour of the day? We all have our process. And reality is going to continue to be reality no matter how we feel about it. But there are some tips I had and some pieces of advice that I thought I might offer that I thought might possibly help in this process. No matter what happens, if you know about this stuff, it does make it easier to experience it. I would rather live with an uncomfortable truth than a pleasing lie. And I don't want you to lie to yourselves either. Things are going to get rough in the future. How rough they're going to get is anybody's guess, but things are going to get worse before they are going to get better. That's the world we live in now. And it wasn't any guarantee that things were going to get better with the other choices we had given to us either. This isn't, I am not trying to like sort of be some partisan political hack or something here. I'm trying to talk about things from a more of a psychological, mental health, wellness perspective, because that's my jam. I'm not a demagogue or an ideologue or somebody who is trying to be a political pundit. I'm trying to deal with the reality of what life is going to be like for us, and it's not going to get easier. Money is going to be tighter. The economic situation is going to get tougher, and the world situation is going to get more tense. And that's going to happen for a bit. And we're going to have to sort of figure out how we're all going to individually deal with that. And it really demands that we have our head on straight and our ability to think clear. So let me give a couple pieces of advice as something I can offer in that direction of trying to help you navigate your condition situation as best you can. First off, and this is going to be a funny thing for me to say in a video on YouTube, but as much as possible, I would really recommend getting off social media. I have deactivated my Twitter account. This is the second time I've done that, and it is the final time. I am never going back to Twitter. I'm not going to go on a big roll here about Twitter. I'm just going to simply say that under the ownership of Elon Musk, Jack Dorsey originally started and got Twitter going, and he was bad enough. He set up a platform where people could say anything to each other in 140 characters or something, and they proceeded to do so. And it was always a bit of a sort of a cesspool of the internet, Twitter was. But once Elon Musk took it over, it became a true hellscape of Nazi nonsense. Mr. Free Speech advocate, Elon Musk, decided that it is free speech for all of the very worst people, literally, in the world. So that's what Twitter now represents. And I reached a point where I thought to myself that my continuing presence there was not only not helpful, but was just contributing to that hellscape. So I deactivated my Twitter account. I'm no longer there. You can find me on Threads. I will probably open up a Blue Sky account. And I am on Facebook, and I have a professional page on Facebook, a pro page that you can go to. It's linked below in the description of all my videos or all my social media links. I'll have to take the Twitter one out now. You won't find me on Twitter anymore. So that's something I've done. And you really won't see me much around on Instagram anymore either. And I had a TikTok account. I have a TikTok account, but I'm not really posting there, and I doubt that I ever will. So social media has been an experiment that has gone, as far as I'm concerned, horribly awry and should never have happened. And I believe is a major component in the state of the world today, and our psychological uncertainty and doubt and fear and even terror that many of us are experiencing, I believe has its roots in the makeup of social media, the framework of it, not the content of it. It's literally how it's put together is what's bad for us. And the content that's on it just exacerbates it even more. So anyway, getting away from that might be a pretty good idea right now. The other thing I would recommend is maybe avoiding, and I've been doing a pretty good job of this myself, is avoiding any sort of let's go get back at people online. or in real world for that matter, but certainly online, letting loose on people, expressing yourself, venting, I'm going to just speak my mind, and then cutting into people, or, making them feel bad or whatever for things. This is not going to help you. The science on this is becoming clearer and clearer now. Recent studies have shown that venting and these rooms where you can go take a baseball bat to things and break things and let your anger out. Apparently, this is not a good idea. Venting and releasing your anger and hulking out and becoming a rage monster to let it all out doesn't actually let it all out. And it's really not a good way to deal with your anger. I will invite you to do a little Google foo and do some research, maybe starting with a book called The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, sort of the seminal work on trauma and PTSD and that sort of thing, that and Judith Herman's work. I really recommend checking those books out, checking that work out, so that you'll understand your own trauma and your own triggers and your own anger and where it comes from and why. It does come up and what you can do about it, because there are healthy ways of dealing with anger. There are healthier ways of dealing with it than venting and screaming and gnashing of teeth and rending of garments. So I'll throw that out there. It's not a lot of help maybe to some people to say, well, just don't get angry. I'm not saying don't get angry. I'm saying don't express your anger in a way that makes you feel worse about yourself and about your actions. You're going to regret things that you do in venting or blowing up at people. That's going to have negative consequences. And I'm merely suggesting don't do that. Take that anger and channel it in a different, more productive direction, and deal with it internally in a healthy way, not an unhealthy way. There are ways to do that, and you can look those up. I'm not I'm not an anger management counselor, but I know enough to say this, okay? The other thing that you could substitute some of that time with, right, something you could spend your time doing, is actually spending more real world time with your friends and family. And I mean real world interactions, not Zoom calls. Not phone calls, not social media interactions. There is a biological reason I say that, right? There are biological principles involved in touching and feeling and communicating in real life with people. There's a closure, a satisfaction that our brains and our bodies experience that you cannot experience through social media, sitting on your chair or in your office or in your car. You can't experience that same degree of connection, and therefore your emotional needs will not be fulfilled by trying to use social media to fulfill them. This is just the way it is. It's not my opinion. It's not like, oh, Chris thinks. This is kind of how it works. Is you're just not going to get that feeling. And that's why so many of us have felt so unsatisfied and even out of sorts and emotionally dysregulated by using social media so much, right? So instead, go make the real connections. Take the time, meet for dinner, have lunch, get together, have a party, have an event, have a get together, have a talk around, have a game night, go to meetups, socialize, meet people. That's probably some of the best medicine there is out there right now, actually. And the last thing I wanted to sort of advise here today, because I didn't want to make this too long, and I know I sound preachy sometimes, and I don't really, I don't want to. So the last thing I'm going to say here is, I'm just going to read this actually from a post that I wrote, because I think I just kind of put it most succinctly here. Realize that the worst possible time to make any kind of serious or life-altering decisions of any kind is when you are in an emotional turmoil. You literally just can't trust your brain to be at its best when the emotional engine is on overdrive. And this might require days or even a couple weeks of chill time. That's what I'm doing right now. And while I'm working and doing things, what you'll notice what I'm not doing is ranting and raving and, losing my mind and gnashing my teeth and tearing my walls down and all of that, right? It's time to not act, but to let the emotions run through and let yourself experience them and go through the 5 stages and come back to a place of calm and some feeling of some certainty and some human connection and some empathy and some, connection. That's kind of what we really crave right now at a psychological level, I believe. So the answer is to wait until the emotions are processed. It might take a while, days or even weeks. Be patient with yourself. Take the time you take. Now, here's the thing, right? And this is a lesson learned from my cult experience, from helping other people for years now. The time you take now to stop and think and plan and research and look and listen is time that you will save yourself 10, 20 times the amount of suffering and agony in your future by taking that time now to get your head on straight and decide how to move forward. And by moving forward, I mean navigating our lives in a positive direction into an uncertain future. What kind of things does that entail for us? Well, like cult recovery, it involves strong social networks, the strongest we can make, right? Friends, family, your community, becoming involved with your community at a level that maybe you haven't noticed or thought about before, because local actions and local activity, your local political scene, your local religious scene, your local business scene has far more to do with the factors of your life than what's going on in Washington, D.C. And we really hyper focus and go a little bit too hard on the federal level of things, when what's having a much more direct effect on our life is what's going on in our city or county or town, our state. So I would really recommend paying a lot more attention to that and becoming more involved in that, in whatever degree you feel comfortable, however that manifests for you, right? But it's about that connection. At the end of the day, a satisfied life, a happy life, is one that is filled with events and activities and incidents where we connect. That's what we remember. That's what we hold on to. Those are the memories we cherish. Just go ask a bunch of old people. I have. So fill your life with that. Meaningful, significant things that you can do, however that manifests for you. Get involved. And also make as much as you can. And I'm not at the top of any food chain to be able to be in any economic or social position to run things or be in charge of anything at all. I'm down at the lowest levels of the socioeconomic ladder. And so when options are limited like that, what can you do? Take care of you and yours. That's what you can do. So don't neglect that or ignore that because the big picture looks so awful. It only looks so awful because you're paying attention to all the things you can't do anything about. Instead, pull your flippers back to the things you can do something about and do those things. I don't know any other formula for navigating life successfully than that, There's no guarantee of any success, of course, but at least you'll know that you are doing something about your situation. And that's what I'm trying to do right now. These are where these thoughts and ideas come from. And it's been made known to me when I have been feeling my most bad, my most despairful or awful, right? It's been made clear to me over and over again by you guys that sometimes I help. And sometimes I have advice or direction that can give people some assistance. And so that's kind of what prompted me to make this video today. Between acknowledging Mike as hard as I wanted to and as long coming as has been, I wanted to get that out there. And it seemed like the most appropriate time to do so. And I wanted to say these things post-election because everything I said pre-election, I stand by. I meant every word I said and posted. And I'm not going to change my mind about the things that I said because those are my truths. And so I have to figure out how to navigate, move forward as best I can, as much as everybody else does. We'll move forward together. It seems to me that's a better approach than individually. And let's see what happens. Thanks for coming around and watching me blabber on here about all of this. Thank you for your continuing support of my work. I am continuing to do consultation work. I consulted with somebody last night. That work is ongoing. And if you would like to reach out to me and talk to me individually, one-on-one at a professional level where maybe I can assist you in some fashion, I am not a trained therapist or counselor, and I've never pretended to be. I am somebody who understands coercive control better than your average bear. And if you have a situation involving coercion, and a lot of us do, maybe I can help. If you have friends or family who are stuck in a situation and you don't know how to deal with them, they're in a cult, they're in a cult mindset. You don't know how to interact. You don't know how to help them. You don't know how to even talk to them. Maybe I can help. I'm not going to talk to them for you, of course, but I can help you work out what we can do, right? So if you want my help with that, you can always reach out to me through my website or through my channel. All right. I'm going to get back to my vacation now. Bye, guys.